Oh, we made it.
Hi everybody, I'm Carissa,
And I'm Zane.
and this is our new podcast, Off the Cuff, where we talk about the local music scene and interview local artists, hip hop artists, rock artists, whatever.
Just whoever's making music.
Yeah, and today we weren't really planning on doing this. We had talked about it, but we're like, hey, you know what? Let's just go for it.
That's how we came up with the name.
Yeah. So first off, I want to talk with you a little bit about your music.
Okay.
I know that you've been doing a lot of shows here in Portland and like in Eugene and
Yeah.
around the Pacific Northwest. And your shows are a mix between comedy and music, which are both things that I love. So
Thank you. Thank you.
I've gone to two of your shows and really enjoyed them.
Yeah, thank
Got
you.
some laughs, and also you talk a lot about mental health, which is very important. That people are talking about that and
Yeah.
being more open about it, so that they can reach out.
Yeah, well, I found that the more you talk about stuff like that, the more you give other people an opportunity to talk about maybe their situations. You know, we can't really relate to anybody if somebody doesn't say that they're struggling first. So, you know, that's why whether it's my music, it's my podcast, it's my comedy, I try to address things that are hard to talk about, so that way, you know, people can come up to me afterwards and be like, hey, I really needed to hear that today.
Yeah, and I think everybody has some trauma, and especially after COVID and everything with that, and then a lot of people that are involved in the protest scene have a lot of built up trauma.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were kind of conditioned not to talk about those things growing up. So yeah, I think it's new to a lot of people, just being open about their mental health struggles.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I feel like with COVID, I think that us being forced to be by ourselves made it more apparent how important like mental health and stuff like that is because it wasn't until you were sitting by yourself that you're like, oh, my relationship with me is the most important one.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, definitely. Like you have to, it kind of forced you to look within yourself and to be comfortable like in your own skin and realize what you weren't comfortable with and realize that you need to work on shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm interested in hearing like how you, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before.
Yeah.
On a personal level about like how you decided to mix music and comedy. Did you start off as a musician first, or did you start off as a comedian first?
Yeah, so I think I started off as a comedian first. I started doing comedy in Iowa, and it wasn't until I realized like I've always wanted to do music, but my heart's always been more in music. So it's like if you don't like my joke, like it took me like 3 seconds to make that joke, you know, it took me 3 seconds to tell that joke, but like a song, it's like it took me, I had to write it, I had to edit it, I had to record it, I had to make the music, I had to do all this stuff, so it's like there's so many hours behind it that like if that was, not well received, it was more painful. So I definitely started off doing comedy first. I started doing music. I started to see the reactions that people had with my music, where people were really enjoying it. And that's where I kind of got the idea that, like my comedy is too goofy, it's just a bunch of puns, right? And my music is way too serious and sad. Mm-hmm. But I found that if I combine the two, that they kind of balance each other out.
Yeah, so was it hard, like your first show, to get it right, or did it just kind of flow pretty easily?
Oh, it was that
to mix them up?
Definitely, there was definitely parts where like I was more depressing than I was funny, or more funny than I was, real, and it was there was definitely like a disconnect. So I think the show that you got to see I was able to find more of a balance where it's like, all right, tell your story. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, where it's like tell your story, tell a different part of it with maybe a little bit of humor, and then get back to telling your story.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that, for me, like when I was watching, I wasn't sure if I should laugh or not.
I get that reaction a lot.
I like start to laugh and I'm like, wait, that's like a serious subject, so I'm not really sure. I'm sure you did that a lot.
Yes. No, but I'm glad you said it and put it to words, because that's a very common, where people are like, hey, like, is it okay to laugh at this? And it's like, yes, if I'm talking about it, like I want you to be able to laugh at it, because it's something that's either doesn't get talked about at all, or when it gets talked about, it's, you know, such a heavy subject that like we're not able to see the humor in it. So yeah, I try to have like a breadth of emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you did a great job of it. I saw you at where was the first place?
First place was my album release.
And then you also had
Hollywood
the show
Bazaar.
Hollywood Bazaar, which you invited me to, and I'm like, well, I have this other thing, like I'm meeting somebody about my CBD business here, and I didn't say where it was, and then I ended up running into you. I'm like, well, this is perfect.
You're like, I'm going to a market tonight, and I'm like, that's crazy, I'm at a market.
So yeah, it worked out, and just the way that this podcast worked out, like we actually were going to Hollywood Bazaar to go to Chakra Brunch, which, you know, they have yoga and they have like Reiki and just like a bunch of woo-woo spiritual shit, which I am into lately. And you had said that you thought it was cool, so I was like, hey, come along, my friend Kara's coming.
Yeah.
And then you got there, and the person who was cooking the vegan brunch blew their back. I mean,
threw their back out.
Their back out. So, and he also, I think, helps with the sound too, so it didn't end up happening. You thought I was doing like an April Fool's joke on you.
Yeah, it was just like, you
hey,
were 2 days late.
Come to this spot. I'm not gonna be there, but so then we're like, you know what, let's talk about our podcast. Why don't we just do it today? Why not?
Give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, you're a musician, so we already have somebody to interview. And
perfect.
We kind of figure it out as you go. Like, really, that's all a podcast is just talking and interviewing, and we're both podcasters. I have another podcast based with Des and Hiram.
Check it out, it's super dope.
And then you have one, The Smoke Break, as well. I talk about Hiram and I talk about my co-host and I talk about kind of social issues, controversial topics. And The Smoke Break, you talk about mental health, music.
Mental health.
Mostly mental health?
Mental health and comedy, and then we have some musicians and stuff on there, so it's kind of just mental health in regards to like just entertainers, you know, because we're people who are constantly putting ourselves out there, and you have to be able to be in a good place to deliver that kind of performance, you know. So if you're not happy with yourself and you're showing up to something where you're supposed to be making other people happy and you're not happy, like you're pouring from a cup that's empty. Right.
So something that I've heard is that most comedians are depressed and have mental health issues. Is that true? And do you think that they get into comedy because of that? That's kind of been like their way of dealing with things growing up, is they use humor when they're uncomfortable. So it just.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's kind of like alchemy, you know, where you're trying to turn pain into gold, and it's kind of, at first it kind of comes out of necessity, where it's like you're in these painful situations where, you know, the only way you can really survive is by laughing at them. Mm-hmm. And so
I think that's a great tool.
It is.
Out of all of them.
Yeah, exactly. You can do drugs. No, there's really, like, you know, a number of ways that you can use to deal with it, and humor is one of those things where it kind of gives you an opportunity to connect with people, you know, because a lot of our pain comes from thinking that we're the only ones struggling. And so through comedy, you know, my favorite moments are when somebody says that thing, you're like, holy shit, me too. Like, I've literally been there as well. Like, I've literally thought that same exact thing.
Yeah, and a lot of times you're like, oh, I'm the only one that has these feelings, I'm feeling so alone, and then you say it and you're like, wow, it's nice that not nice that other people are feeling that.
But it's comforting, you know, where it's like,
So back to the music, when did you start rapping and making, so you do more like lyrical, what do they call it, like kind of poetic?
Like storytelling. You know, I try and make it really uplifting.
Are you on Spotify?
I'm on Spotify, so you can.
Zane Thomas.
Zane Thomas, ZaneThomas. You can check me out. I just dropped my EP at the beginning of the year, the end of last year, but you can check it out on Spotify. 5 songs. They're all super close to my heart, and I got new stuff coming out soon. So.
Awesome.
But
when did you start?
Yeah, when did I start? So I started probably like when I was 14. I had found Atmosphere, and
Oh yeah.
I was like, wait, what? You can be sad and rap? This is awesome. I love this.
Talk about hoes and bitches. All the time,
Exactly. Yeah, it was music I could connect with more. You know, where it was more about love. It was more about personal experience and struggles that like I didn't grow up in a ghetto. I didn't grow up in a hood. So it was like listening to that music, I could never connect with it. So
yeah.
being able to find music that I could connect with and then wanting to give that back to other people. So yeah, I found that when I was like 14, started kind of like writing my own music and stuff like that. And then it wasn't until I was probably 19 that like I went to China and started buying my own music equipment so that way I could actually pursue it, because I wanted to make music, but I didn't have anybody to make it for me. So.
Mm-hmm. So you went to China specifically to buy music equipment?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes,
That's dedication.
I went there with a mission.
Also, you probably had fun there too, but
yeah,
that was the
no.
main mission.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. I had gotten busted with crystal meth, and I was kind of at a point where I was just like, this is the lowest point in my life. Like, I really don't think I can recover or do better. And I got offered an opportunity where this guy's like, hey, if you're seriously interested in getting out of this town, like I can get you at a guitar shop in San Francisco, or I could get you to China. And I was like, fucking China? Like, I wanted to get out of here. I didn't want to get that far out of here. And he offered me that opportunity. And the more I thought about it, the more I was just like, you know what? Like, who gets that opportunity? Who gets that chance? So
did he like fund your trip?
Yeah, he didn't fund it, but he got it expunged off my record. He went and vouched for me in court, so it was expunged,
That's
and
awesome.
that way, because that's a fucking felony. You can't get a passport. So
Yeah.
he got it expunged, so that way I could go to China. And yeah, I went there to learn music. I started learning music theory in Chinese and stuff, where it was like, I'm already learning one language, now I'm learning it in a different language. And there was just I've always loved music. I've loved the messages that you can communicate through them. So no matter how difficult it has been to try and get that message out there, I've kind of tried to persist with it.
Nice. And you were saying that you didn't grow up in the hood, and I feel like a lot of rappers, that's what they talk about, because that's their experience. But also a lot of rappers talk about it and they haven't lived it. They're just like, I grew up in this nice neighborhood, but I'm gonna talk about
things that I didn't live
my
because
dad.
it's popular.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad that that's So I'm glad that that's not something that you like went for. But but how did you? You said that you did get into drugs. Did you like live in a nice neighborhood? I don't know.
I lived in like a small town. It was called Burns, Oregon. So yeah, where the militia took over and stuff. That's where I'm from. So there's basically all you can do there is you can either have kids, do drugs, or leave. Right.
I grew up in Walla Walla, Washington. So
right.
I feel that vibe.
Yeah. Since leaving costs money and having kids takes two people, I was like, drugs, and so that's how I ended up getting into that. And it was kind of just a place where it was like, if you don't get out of this, then you're going to end up doing the same thing.
Right.
So
or end up dead.
Yeah, or end up dead. Yeah, honestly, yeah, or in jail. Like there's you really, once you start going down that route, there's really only so many outcomes if recovery isn't kind of in your future.
Yeah. So not only are you in recovery, but you're also doing big things, and
yeah, I appreciate that.
It's pretty amazing. So proud of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anybody that, other than Atmosphere, that inspired you when you were young to start up?
I would honestly say Macklemore.
Okay.
Macklemore.
Thanks.
Yeah. I really. There's a lot of songs that
Thrift
like.
Shop? That
Thrift Shop.
I mean, that's the most popular.
Yeah. There's a lot of songs off of his first album that just like, there's songs that I listen to when it's like I'm having like probably like some of the worst days that I've ever had, and I just need somebody who's like, hey, it's gonna be okay. And it was finding out that music could be that. It was like Atmosphere held a place when it was like, when I was in love, and I was angsty, and I was there was a lot of that. But like once I kind of moved past that, it's like, okay, what about personal development? How about personal growth? Like who's kind of encouraging
There's
me in that direction?
And there's growth.
Yeah, exactly. This is the hurt part. Where do I go from here? So I kind of had to find.
Yeah, I have
artists.
different playlists on Spotify for that.
Exactly.
This one's my depressed.
This is I'm sad and I want to stay sad.
This one's my motivation playlist, and this one's like my bad bitch.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. So when you first started, how did you record? Because
Oh God.
Little known fact about me: I actually used to do some rapping myself. And I made
Hey.
little tapes, and I did freestyle. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna freestyle anymore. Like
Yeah,
I'm
we
done.
agreed on the second
I'm-
episode. We
Yeah.
talked about this.
Yeah, I'm done with that. Like I was out with a friend and told them that I could freestyle, and they were like, and I was like, come on, I'm gonna do it, and they were like, no, you're drunk. I'm not gonna let you do this.
That was when I freestyled
This
too,
is-
so I
this
mean,
is
don't
like-
don't feel bad.
So that was the last time I tried, and they were like, no, not. And so that was a good friend because I probably would have embarrassed myself, you know. But
No, I've that's that freestyling drunk is
It's-
like it's so fun. It's so
It's
fun
so fun,
because there's
but-
not that like that voice where it's just like, oh man, don't mess up. Oh man, don't mess up. It's just like, nah, man, word, pew pew pew. You know, and you're just going.
yeah. So I definitely had fun making music, and like I actually did record some of my music.
Okay.
I showed my friends, and some of them were like, "Oh, that's really good," and then other people laughed at me. But I wasn't like
Got no
planning on.
friends.
Right, they're not my friends anymore.
Good,
But,
get rid of them.
but yeah, it was just something for me that was like therapeutic and just like a way to express myself. I wasn't thinking like I'm gonna make money off this or I'm gonna be famous. If there was like if I was big on YouTube then, which I'm older, so that wasn't really around when I was making
Yeah,
music.
same.
So yeah, I didn't really have anywhere to put my music online or anything.
So how did you record? Is it,
So I had
I'm
like
excited.
a little Walkman, and I
Okay.
had little blank tapes, and I recorded myself on it.
What? So
I had
You-
sampled beats.
you had
and
the
then
beats
I,
over here, and then you took the Walkman
Yeah.
and you put it
I
right
had, well, I
here.
had one Walkman playing the music, or like a radio,
Okay.
and then I had my Walkman recording.
This
and
is
I rapped
awesome.
into it.
This is awesome. This. Somebody's gonna watch this video in 100 years and be like, man, really? They did not know what they were doing.
I think I'm gonna do that again. Actually, I'm gonna buy
Please do.
2 Walkmans, buy some blank tapes,
Yes.
start rapping
yes.
again. It's gonna be a fucking thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll
It's gonna be the
record-
intro music.
I'll record myself doing this with my 2 Walkmans, and then I'm gonna be big.
And then
You'll
it's gonna
see.
be the
You'll
intro
see.
to this. It's
Yeah.
gonna be
Exactly. And I actually still make beats. I posted a couple of my beats with little videos. But,
No, you make some really cool
But I'm
beats.
still learning. So, back to you.
Yes.
How did you first start recording your music?
So
Did you
I,
have like a studio or?
So the way I first started recording my music is there was like this little cubby. I was like in my apartment in China, and there was this little tiny cubby where you would just put like decorations or ornaments or whatever, and I just shoved all the pillows I had into the corners of it, and then I put my iPad mini. This is when it first came out. It was like,
Oh, baby.
yeah, it was basically a big phone.
Yeah.
And I would just put that in there, and then I would just use that as like, oh, like this is bouncing off all the. It's so embarrassing. It's
Probably
so
sounds
embarrassing.
better than my first recording.
It doesn't. Sounded crisp, but it was not. It was not good rap. But but it's always kind of interesting how people make that happen, because I feel like hip hop's just one of those things where it's like it was made by people who were at a disadvantage and had to find a way to make what they wanted to make. So that's why sampling's such a popular thing, is because it's like we didn't get nobody bought us a saxophone. My mom didn't buy me a saxophone. How do I make music but I don't have the stuff? So.
Yeah, like me, you just kind of DIY it.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
you
no,
have the
I
funds
love
and
that.
resources.
That's so cool. That's more hip hop than me. So I mean, I love that. That's fucking cool.
Started from the bottom now. So you went to China, you got your music equipment, you're recording over there on your little iPad mini.
Yep.
Where did you go from there? Were you still in Burns, Oregon after you came back from China?
So when I came back from China, the reason I ended up coming back from China is because my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer. And I was coming back to visit when we had found out, and I was just like, hey, I told my grandfather, I was like, hey, I know you guys need help. I really love China. I had a fiance, I was the manager of the school. Like I really had more reasons not to leave than to leave, but I knew they needed help. So I was like, hey, I'll come back and help. And basically probably a month after I had agreed to that, my grandfather and my grandmother both got in a car accident. And my grandfather passed away, and they were on their way to chemotherapy, and my grandfather passed away, and my grandmother survived, and I was like, okay, I have to come back now. And so I came back to Iowa. That was where I was born, in Iowa. I moved back to Iowa so that way I could, help take care of her. And so Yeah. I guess I don't know. My plan was never to go back to Burns because I knew that it was never going to be good. But I wanted to come back, and if I had to come back, my intention was to be helpful. But my intention was also that if I came back, that I had to pursue the things I'd always wanted to, because I was just I was putting more time of like maybe
this
if I
place sucks. I need to do my thing.
Well, I could have stayed in China for forever, and I feel like there's a lot of situations where you end up comfortable and you're like, but I don't want to be, if I change, things might be more uncomfortable. And it's like, yeah, true, but they also might be more comfortable. And, that's not a story we ever tell ourselves. It's always like, this is going to be worse. I don't want it to be worse. So, I ended up moving back to Iowa and then kind of just pursuing comedy. I kind of put music to the side and was like, hey, I want to do this, but what if people don't like it? So I pursued probably comedy as soon as I got back, and
Cool. And then how long was it before you went back into music?
So I would say I remember on my birthday while I was back there for like a year, I had a couple songs, and maybe I had like 5 songs. I'd asked the place, I was like, hey, it's my birthday, is there any way I could come perform? They're like, yeah, sure, give it a try. So I go there, I do my music.
5 songs that are on your EP?
Probably, there's some of them that are on there.
A blend of the songs?
Yeah, a couple blends, couple songs I haven't done in years, it was just kind of just what I had at the time. And so I went and I did that music, and my uncle or my grandmother's brother came, and he took me to the show. And as soon as I finished my set, he's like, that was fucking awesome. And I was like, dude, thank you. And he was just like, I don't know why you're doing comedy. And I was like,
you're like, thanks.
It could have just been a compliment. It didn't need a backhand. It's thank you. So yeah, it would kind of just gave me that that reminder because there's a lot of my music is super personal, so my belief is always that nobody can relate to this. My belief and my fear is that nobody can relate to this, that it's just it's a thing that happened, that that it's that experience that I'm alone in, and
right.
Having somebody just be like, hey, I really enjoyed that, it just reaffirmed that it was something I needed to pick back up.
Yeah, I mean that's why I listen to music or anything, because I feel like I can relate to it. So I think what you talk about in your lyrics and your comedy is very relatable.
Thank you.
And I think keep doing it.
Thank you. Yeah.
So that leads us to now. You're doing a lot of shows. Are you still doing 2 or 3 shows a week like you were doing?
No, God no. There's no way. I can't do that.
1 week you did 3 or 4 shows, and you're like, I haven't slept.
Yeah, I haven't slept. This should be fun, but it's not. It's not the show's fault. It's capitalism.
Your new album. So
I put out my new album. I put out my music video as well. So it was it was a lot of creating and trying to figure out how to get it to people. And there was that week that I had done 4 shows, and I was like, I'm super grateful for this, but God, am I burnt out. So I'm doing a little bit less now, but I have there's always something that I'm doing. If I'm not working on the music, I'm working on comedy. If I'm not working on comedy, I'm working on music. Started writing some spoken word, because I think that would
kind of in between.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I guess that's a really good way to put it. Is that it's fucking blew my mind right there.
Yeah, so you can do a little bit of comedy, spoken word, and then go into the music, or however you want to do it.
Yeah, no,
a
absolutely.
nice transition, because people are like, is he still doing spoken word? No.
Yeah.
He's actually rapping now.
Well, it's not rap if it doesn't rhyme. It's not comedy if it's not funny. And it's what if I just want to talk? You
can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
And you can juggle up there. People would enjoy it.
So you do believe in me. You do believe in me.
Yeah, you can do the comedy, spoken word, rap, and then at the end you do juggling and
juggling.
Fire. What is it called?
Yeah, fire poi.
Or the fire throwers, flamethrowers.
Yeah, sword swallowing too. They can just
one man show.
One man show.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see where you're heading.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to work with you more on this podcast.
Yeah.
Off the Cuff is our podcast.
Yeah, until we find out it's taken, but until then.
Well, it might change, but today that's what it is.
Yep, absolutely. Today it was definitely off the cuff.
Yes. But we plan on, this is a space, if you all have been following my social media and my live streaming, we are working on building this space. It's a collab, creative space. and also like a hub for providing mutual aid resources as well. So it's new.
It's a super dope space. You guys should come support it. Just because spaces like this, you know, like restaurants, venues, all that stuff can't exist if there's not people reinvesting into it. So your help is greatly appreciated. I know that you know, once things get set up, I'm probably going to try and have my podcast out of here, just because it's a really cool space and it's people that I know and I want to support. So
thank you. Yeah, and I'll be recording my other podcast here too. We don't really have a huge setup or anything yet, but we will soon. And I plan on having musicians, like rappers. If you're a musician, maybe reach out to us on social media. Carissa Des on Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You can like follow. And then Zane is also on Instagram and Facebook.
It's
Zane.
It's Zane Thomas on Instagram, and then Zane Thomas on everything else.
Yeah. So who are some of the local musicians that you're interested in?
Let's see. Interviewing. I probably want to have Emiliano Raps. He's a political rapper and has a lot of good content. Super talented. He's actually the person who put me on at the protests. He had a certain amount of time and he was like, "Hey, I really like this song. I think it needs to get that exposure. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have performed at the protest. Would not have met you. So he's definitely somebody who I want to just check back in with." So
yeah.
What about you?
I just want to say, I met you actually it was related to the protest because we were on an episode of KBOO. What was the name of the show? It was a show on KBOO that we were both on, and we were kind of talking about the protests, and I think they were having BIPOC people on there talking about social justice. So hey, can you turn that back on?
Oh, sorry. I thought it was off.
We're doing the podcast right now.
Oh, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Philip.
Is it cool if I open that up?
Yeah. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so that's how we met, and as soon as I met you, I was like, this guy's cool. I feel like we'll work together in the future. That was honestly my thought.
That's really
I was
cool.
I don't know where we're gonna work, and I do that too with people, and then I always end up working with those people.
Hey, manifest it.
Yes. But yeah, those people are super cool. That house that we
we're hanging out at and just
there were
learning
records everywhere, and I met my friend Grover. Do you know Grover?
Grover. Yep,
Yeah,
Grover's
he was
super
telling me
dope.
about his experience. He was in a Nirvana video. Anyway, totally off topic, but not really. It's music.
No, it's music. It's music.
So yeah, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. As for musicians that I'd like to interview, there are a few different punk, young punk bands that I want to talk to, and also I really want to talk to Roulette Delgado.
Yeah.
He's a rapper. He actually had a huge billboard in downtown Portland that is kind of still there, but it was there for a long ass time. Huge, just like he is. He's part of the LGBT community as well. Big supporter. Also Mac, you know Mac, right?
Mac Millio?
I forget his name right now. But anyway, he's big in the music scene as well, so I'd love to interview him. Anything else?
Cameos.
Yeah, we'll probably, hopefully do this, I don't know, maybe bi-weekly, weekly, monthly, we don't know yet. We're still talking about it, so we'll see. Stick around and stay tuned in and check back, and we'll update you on what's happening.
Looking
We'll be
forward to
live
it.
for probably every episode, and
Sure.
like I said, if you're a musician who wants to chat with us and talk about your start and your music, let us know. Send us a DM. All right, Peace Love Donuts.
Later, players.
You can do your pew pew if you think if you want.